Welcome to Season 3 of The Lifestyle Chase, and I'm your host, Chris Little. This podcast features high performers who have found a way to live their best life while balancing their health, wellness, friends, and family. To help this podcast grow, please share it on social media, rate 5 stars, tell your friends, and check out the past 140 episodes and counting. You can follow me on Instagram at Christian Little and at The Lifestyle Chase. Thanks for listening. Let's get started. So, welcome to The Lifestyle Chase. This is episode 150, and I've brought back some very popular guests, good friends of mine, Farha and Naheed, Shariff. It's been 137 episodes since you guys have been last on the podcast. Time has just flown by. First of all, I'm going to get you guys to give a little bit of an intro of yourselves. We'll start with Naheed, just like as if you're at a party and somebody's just like meeting you, or you're at a gathering or at a business meeting, like your typical scenario where you have to like kind of give a bit of a background info of yourself.
Okay, well, I'm an industrialist. I'm in hospitality. I own and operate 6 restaurants, father of 3, husband of 20 years, almost 21 years. And I love the business I'm in. I love talking to people. I love networking. I enjoy everything I do. And that's it.
I love it. So, Dr. Farha, your turn.
My turn. I'm a daughter of immigrants who came to Canada in the early 60s. Both my parents are educators. My dad has multiple degrees in microbiology and was a prof at a college here in Edmonton, and my mom was a school administrator for a number of years. I am an assistant lecturer at the University of Alberta in the Department of Educational Policy Studies. I'm also a consultant, an anti-racism consultant. I've been working with various organizations around Canada that range from community services to medical faculties, schools, administrators, teachers, students, you name it. I used to teach fitness, but COVID has kind of cramped those plans, and I hope to come back to it soon. And I have 3 beautiful queens that we are raising. I think that's it. We have 2 little doggies.
I forgot.
I'm not going to be scratching at the door. That might make an appearance. That's about it.
So, talking about dogs, because it's good to keep the topics kind of light sometimes. I want to know, how has being a dog owner changed your guys' lives? Like, whichever one of you wants to contribute, but just to kind of like give some insight into the journey of being a dog owner, what it was like before you got a dog, and like lessons that you've learned that you didn't expect that you would learn.
I think cleanup constantly is a really big part of that. It's something that we didn't have an issue with when we had cats. It's constant cleanup with these dogs. They're not messy creatures, but they like to send messages.
They leave little gifts. One of them right down there. You have to be careful where you walk
all the time.
No, that's not true.
Yeah, wear shoes in the house.
That's not true. They're not that bad. Maybe just once in a while. We had 2 cats before our dogs. Our cats lived for 20 some years. They were my firstborn. I never thought I'd be a dog person ever. I'm now someone who will literally cry if I see a dog that looks sad, or a commercial,
or a dog movie.
Yeah. My youngest daughter has asked often if we love our dogs more than our kids. She might not be wrong. I love my dogs. They're like the biggest joy outside of having children.
They're loving creatures. So hard day at work or you're stressed out, it's so beautiful because when you sit down, they just come and cuddle up next to you. And I think they sense when you're stressed out or anxious or, so they're really loving animals, very different than the cats that were like, see ya, peace out.
No, the cats were very independent. They didn't require a lot of time, or, they kind of just kept to themselves, but they had their own, I believe that they have their own energy. But your question, we're totally off topic right now. His question was advice or lessons learned. So lesson number one, if you can afford it, get pet insurance.
Yeah.
Dogs like to eat things often. That was
bears and chocolate.
Not, yeah. So we were lucky enough to be able to get pet care insurance, and so that saved our asses many times and continues to do so.
Mm-hmm.
And the second thing, if you're not careful of where you put their surroundings, they will let you know. And so we have chewed baseboards and other nice things that are happening in our house because they may not be happy with certain living arrangements for them right now. And recently, as people may have seen on my Instagram, that Ruby is obsessed with our garage. And she has taken a permanent home outside of our garage door, inside the house, but outside that back door.
Mm-hmm.
She has a bed there, she's water. She's quite happy at the back door. But if anybody out there is thinking of getting a dog, and once you think about it, like, there's no going back, Christian, hint, hint, you need to get a dog.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's on my list of things. There's a lot of things that I need to take care of, but I thought, like, a year like this year, with so many different things that have gone on, I think a lot of people have really grown to appreciate how impactful simply the connection of, like, a pet can be. And in the cases where there is not a pet present, it's always great to really lean into the connections that you have with friendships and with family, stuff like that. Something that I wanted to kind of segue towards, Naheed, you had brought up stress and how dogs kind of helped you with stress. And I think a lot of people see you as like a business owner, as someone who is just like kicking ass and taking names, and they might assume that you never get stressed. So I kind of want to dive into that a little bit further. Talk about like a time when you've really honestly felt stressed and you might not have had the answers, and what did you do to move forward from that situation?
Well, I mean, the industry I'm in is one of the hardest hit industries in COVID. So it's stress all the time. I manage it with the help of my family. I manage it with the help of training, running, spin. I do all of those things to manage that. So I start my day with that. The other thing along the lines of having dogs is the first thing that they do when you see them is it's like they have never seen you, or they've missed you for years and years and years. So they run up to you and they're jumping all around, and then they fully like will lay on their backs and want a full rub down. So it's it kind of takes your mind off things and you're very relaxed. And so that just settles me down. But being in COVID and the business that we're in, it's a constant stressor. We don't know when the next health authority is going to tell us to close. We don't know if our staff will contract something that will end up shutting our restaurants down. It's just a difficult process, but we're in a position where you're right. I don't let the stress get the best of me. I sit, I meditate, contemplate, and organize my thoughts on a daily basis, and then get back to work. And here is Ruby. Yeah.
This is Ruby.
So you talk about kind of organizing your thoughts, and that's something that I can definitely relate to. I think a lot of people can relate to that, in how sometimes you just have to get things out on paper. What does that look like for you in your routine? Like, what is organizing your thoughts for Naheed?
So I do that daily, and I have a long-term vision and a short-term vision. So I'll plan backwards from 10 years, and then 10, 5, 1, and then on a daily basis. So, but every morning I organize my thoughts. I used to do it on paper. I don't need to do it on paper anymore. I do the long-term planning on paper, but the short-term planning I don't.
Well, I think that's something a lot of people have in common. Like, I've talked to, if anybody goes back in the episodes and listens to the episode with Scott McWalter, he's based out of Prince George, and he had a very similar strategy for planning out goals, doing that whole 10-year, 5-year, working back. I think putting a visual to things or getting analytical or using the statistics that you have in front of you and then using like the processes to move forward is helpful. But then I wonder, like, where do you source your motivation from? Like, what fuels your next big idea, or what is the thing that influences what's at the end of the 10 years for you when you're making your plan?
That's a really great question. I love to build things, so it never stops. So I'm already planning 10 years from now. So if we could say 10 years from now, I'll be here, but I'm still at stage 8 year of the previous 10 year or stage 6 year of the previous 10 year. It's like a constant. So I've got reoccurring goals and ones that are based on growth of our businesses. And sometimes that's a good thing and sometimes that's a bad thing. But I love to build things, Chris. It's like I don't get bored in what I do, and it's a constant learning process. So our latest project is in a residential tower, which I've never dealt with, building a restaurant in a residential tower. And this has got a whole new set of complications that I never knew existed. I thought it'd be really easy to do, and it's super difficult, and it's very challenging mentally and physically. So.
What gives you confidence when you're up against a challenge like that, when you're kind of feeling like, oh, you don't have the expertise or the wheelhouse that you might have had in another direction? You're in a new direction, kind of feeling a bit like unsure. Like, what gives you that sense of certainty, or what gives you that push to take the step forward?
That's a great question. I think I motivate myself internally. I have a lot of faith in what I can do. And I research like crazy. So if I feel like I don't know something, or I want to learn something about a certain piece of what I'm doing or a product I'm buying, or I over and hyper analyze and hyper research it, so that I don't feel like it hasn't been done before. It's nothing new. Someone's built a restaurant in a residential tower. So I just need to find how they did it, what they did, what challenges they went through, and then it makes it a whole lot easier. So I already know people have done this for years. I just need to find the right people to get that information to me.
Well, that's awesome. Like, I think that's something that a lot of people that listen to podcasts are going to really like think about. They're going to be like, well, why do I listen to podcasts? To hear about people that have done a thing already and see if I can figure out how to do it too. I'm going to turn the table a little bit here, and we're talking to Farha now. Within the year 2020, Farha, you and I have talked about connection quite a bit, and I know that you can expand on it quite a bit in terms of just like checking in on people and connection. Like, what has your experience been with that? Like, I know that I can speak personally on the times that you've checked in on me and how meaningful that was. So I can say that you are someone that is very good with intuition in knowing when to just send somebody a text or have a visit with somebody. But I just want to hear your words and what your experience with that has been, and if you have perhaps learned anything that 2020 has taught you about connection and like the true meaning of it, and not just the social media putting up a post type.
Really good question. I think back to what my life was like this time last year. I had just left Cycle Bar. I feel like the experiences and the people that I met there were literally life-changing. I think that I'm still in pretty regular communication with a lot of people that I met as a result of teaching fitness. I think that connection looks different for everyone. I think now that we're in our early 40s, for us, connection is very much about, checking in with people who have similar struggles, but also have very different struggles. I also think that I've learned very, I guess slowly over the course of my young adulthood and into, adulthood that there's a lot of different types of people in the world. I am confident in saying that I'm very much someone who I love hard. I give a lot of myself to people. I don't often expect the same in return, though. I think that 2020 has shown me, I used to like the word resilience, but I actually hate it now. I think it's a very coded word for how much you can tolerate before you break. And the ability to get back up once you're broken is very much dependent on your life circumstances. And I think, really, I really do. I think, words like grit and resiliency are making their way out of my vocabulary because, some people might have like life circumstances that don't create a platform for them to be able to get back up. And that's partly from privilege. It's partly from, socioeconomic status. There's so many different layers to that. But I think connection for me is very much, intentional. I think my circle is very small. I like to call it my board of directors. It's very small. I do feel like I've made some deeper connections with people that have always been there as a result of COVID. And I also feel like I've trimmed some of the unnecessary threads that were just kind of hanging on. And I don't really feel the need to continue to pull on. And so connection for me is very intentional. It's somewhat reciprocal. I don't always expect the same, and kind of no strings attached.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of an exchange of energy in the sense that like we only have so much energy, and so we kind of have to be smart and tactful in the directions that we give our energy. And it's not necessarily a bad thing if we're not able to give energy to everybody. It's a very realistic thing. And for us to be able to find the people that kind of match our value system and are kind of headed in the same direction, like similar 10-year goals, similar 5-year goals, is just going to make it a lot easier to sustain that level of energy. Because if you're dedicating a lot of yourself to someone that's going in the complete opposite direction, you're just going to run out. I know that's an experience that I've had from time to time. In reflecting on COVID again, because there is so much to talk about, but it's easier to really dial it down to specific topics. And for me, what I've really gained a lot from is hearing the lessons that people have learned about themselves, like in this time where we get introspective and we realize things that we never expected we'd realize. So Farha, is there anything that stood out to you that you've realized about yourself that you never expected that you'd realize, like things that haven't been brought up with regards to connection, just new things altogether?
What have I learned about myself? You always ask hard questions. Okay. What have I learned?
I like it that he's asking you.
I know, right? Because then it gives you time to think. I think that what I've learned about myself is fitness was a huge part of my life for so long, and still is. I feel like I've discovered who I am, not necessarily needing a fitness platform. That was a really tough lesson for me. So much of my joy in teaching fitness classes was making people feel seen, because I had I grew up feeling invisible, and there's nothing more gratifying than, shining something in someone that you recognize might be lacking. And for those of us who feel invisible, it's really easy to spot others like us. And so I think so much of what filled me up at, teaching fitness was the ability to see people who are deeply hurt or struggling and make them feel recognized and seen. And so much of what I also loved about teaching fitness was the ability to do that for people. That makes, anybody would be fooling themselves if they thought that teaching fitness didn't bring joy, because you also feel heard and seen. I think my departure from fitness last fall, on my terms, was probably one of the most difficult things I had to do. But I think it fostered a sense of determination in myself to sit with a very uncomfortable place. And I taught my last class a year ago yesterday, with spin. And it's been hard. It's been hard to sit with the thoughts that get trapped in your head, that you end up that's how I used to teach my classes. It was very much catharsis for me. I would be working through my own things that people could relate to. And so when you don't have a place for those thoughts to go, they kind of get trapped. And for me, teaching fitness was so much of like that energy exchange, like kind of running through you, and like once it's gone, it's gone. So it was very therapeutic for myself and for people who took classes with me. So I think what I learned about myself this year was the ability to sit with all that energy and do something with it. And it hasn't always been easy. I think sitting in silence and not always feeling like you need to figure things out is a skill that is a hard skill to learn. What else I've learned about myself is that I don't rest. I don't take time to rest. And for a hyperactive, overachieving daughter to immigrant parents who was always, taught the value of doing more, being better, for my own good, to survive in this world. That's a constant internal dialogue that's hard to turn off. And I'm definitely one of those people, if I'm sitting with nothing to do or nothing to read or nothing to mark or nothing to prepare, I feel restless. And so what I've learned about myself is that's a coping strategy, actually, for this need to be always busy, is a coping strategy in response to either stress or trauma. And so sitting with that, energy that I always need to be doing something, I didn't realize that about myself. Naheed used to joke with me all the time, like, you always need to be moving, you always need to be out of the house, you always need to be doing something. But it didn't occur to me that was coming from somewhere that was broken until it was kind of too late. And so I'm starting to embrace the art of doing nothing. And I kind of like it, actually. I'm not going to lie. You bug me about that sometimes, but sometimes I get into bed and I'm reading or I'm watching the news, and I literally, it's time for snacks, and that's when he goes to the kitchen and gets me snacks. Well, yeah, that's what I've learned.
That's important context. I think it's important for people to maybe check themselves, because like, I know a lot of people that are going to gravitate towards this podcast. First of all, they're probably going to have some background on you, and maybe they just have never understood like why you were so passionate about fitness and why you are still passionate about fitness. Like, truthfully, you're both still very active. So you still have a platform within fitness. That's one thing that I've had to wrap my head around personally, is that regardless of whether we have riders in a class or people in the gym, like if we have control over our ability to utilize fitness, then we have fitness as our platform. Like, in tough days, if we know how to create a workout or we know where the good walking trail is, then we have our platform. But really dialing it back and focusing in a bit more, I'm actually going to turn the table again, keep you guys on your toes. Naheed, you're super competitive. That's something that I know to be true about you. And we talk about like energy balance and like how to hold back when we need to hold back and how to press forward when we need to press forward. There's so many opportunities for you to compete. There's been probably so many instances where you've had to decide, okay, am I going to move forward in this direction or in this direction? Because I can only pick one. What are the guidelines that you follow for yourself? Like, what's your inner compass in deciding like where are you going to compete and where are you going to step back?
I don't think I've stepped back yet. I think I like to compete on every level. You know what COVID has done, Chris? It's slowed down that process up. So I take my time to think through multiple directions. But to be honest with you, I haven't slowed or decided that in this arena, I don't want to compete. I want to be competitive in every arena. And what COVID's done is just allow me to strategize how I'm going to do that and how I'll compete. But it's engaged me further in wanting to grow and do things that I didn't do or, create different goals for myself or for a family. But it's also aligned the position that I'm in as a dad and a husband, and a support network for Farha and the kids to ensure that I don't spend all of my time just concentrating on just me and ensuring that I concentrate on what their goals and aspirations are too. So I'm still very competitive. Well, and that's not going anywhere.
I like that every so often I see like such shade thrown in your Instagram story. I think that's why I gravitate towards you, because I'm like, that seems like something I'd say, and I just like hesitate. But he's just like all in. He's like, no, I'm tossing that out there. Saturdays are for like strategizing, and the last one I put up was pretty spicy. That one was good, but
cathartic to put things on stories about how I'm feeling at that moment in time. And when I tell the world about it or I post something, I feel better internally. It's kind of like, it just makes me feel good.
It's not about me.
And it's true. Like I feel, or today was a post about Farha, and
it was?
I thought, sure it was, yeah.
Oh,
and so that's just that's how I feel that day, and I allow myself to explore that through my story. But yeah, I was throwing a little bit of shade yesterday. That was
I have to go. I feel like I'm behind. I gotta go check his content out. Is this a feed or on your?
No, it was just a picture with a little comment.
Oh,
about
it was one of his stories, and it's just like you got to watch out for Naheed when he's silent. Like it's either it's probably not good news.
This is true. The other day, Ruby chewed the baseboard by the back door, and I showed it to him, and I was like waiting for it, and he just walked away, and I was like, shit.
Well,
yeah, but that's just, there's those aren't. I used to get stressed about stuff like that. I don't get stressed about that kind of stuff anymore. It is what it is. It'll get fixed. It's so minor. That's what COVID's taught me too. Is just slow it down. Yeah.
Slow your roll, man.
Yeah.
I think that's in context, but you kind of you gave me some stuff to work with there with what you were saying. Like you are competitive. You don't dial back on the competitiveness. However, it's kind of like when you're looking at a workout program, and it's like everybody has the capability to fill a workout full of things and just work until they're tired and then not be able to do things the next day. But it takes a special mind to be able to look at the things that are going to benefit you the most and be all in on those things. in order for them to benefit you in return, to make that sustainable. And something that I promote a lot is no matter how much you want to succeed, no matter how much you want a business to grow or how much you want your career to move forth, it's important to have that balance of both like prioritizing like meaningful friendships and prioritizing time with family. And that's something that you both always promoted. And with having had more time to reflect during COVID, Naheed, is there anything that you've learned about your family or close friends or your support group that you didn't realize before 2020?
Yeah, I don't think I took, I think I took seeing them on a daily basis for granted. Being at home now a lot more often, I get to enjoy a lot more moments with them. And there's things that I'll see them do that I don't think I noticed before. And it could be small quirks or eating lunch together, eating breakfast together. It's so enjoyable as opposed to running from place to place. I feel that we have a lot more time for ourselves. Farha and I talk a lot more. We meet with our parents on a daily basis, so either hers or mine, and I feel it's like we call them more often than we did before.
My mom just called, actually.
Yes.
Well, we're in our podcast.
But yeah, it's just it allows me the opportunity. Oh, there you go. Right back. It allows us the opportunity to just slow things down and enjoy them. And I'm enjoying every moment with our family. And that's something that it's not that I didn't enjoy every moment, but there's so many more moments now, and it creates a more loving environment.
Well, and isn't that crazy too? Because like nobody would wish a pandemic upon themselves. Like nobody says, "Oh yeah, sign me up for the COVID-19 experience. I want to be stressed, worry about business, and have to stay in my house." But it comes with these blessings. Like it comes with things that changes probably forever. Like I know my personal experience, I've actually, like I've been pretty regular at talking to my parents on the phone and stuff, but like I've helped them chopping wood. I've helped them with all kinds of stuff around the house. I've bonded even more with my brothers. Like it's crazy what happens in times of turbulence. If we go back in the time machine, let's say like 20 years, is there a time of turbulence in your career that you can kind of think of where you've learned something that changed the way you did business from that moment forward?
Oh, that's a really good question, Chris. I think what I learned back then was, and it's grown further in COVID, is I don't need to work harder. I need to work smarter. And not necessarily, it's not about, I know everybody says put in the time and you'll get this, but time is an equation of effort too, right? And strategy. And so I put in more time into strategizing and focusing on the right things that will make an impact in less time. And I know it sounds really weird the way I'm saying it, but before I would work for hours on hours on hours and not really get anything accomplished. And now I can work in half the amount of time and get 200% more stuff accomplished. And so if I look at the old me versus the new me, I think age is a big factor of that. And of course, being at home and having kids and teaches us time organization. So there's been a lot of other effects to that have changed my working world. But yeah, that would be it. That would be it. Is I felt like you always needed to be working, and you don't always need to be working because you can be learning through other factors, and there's other things that will help you achieve your goals.
I love it. So Farha, now that you're back, I'm going to turn the table over to you now. So you're also pretty competitive. I know you pretty well. I know that when you want to show up big, you do everything that you can. And that leads me to asking you a very similar question, because you're only going to have so much energy. You're someone that guards your energy very carefully. What are the things, especially after this year with all the the changes that you've experienced just in your day-to-day and in your routine and how you lead your life, like what are the things that kind of define what you're going to be the most competitive at? Like what's your compass?
What I'm going to be the most competitive at. I think right now, a lot of my work, one, I have learned that my work is part of me, it doesn't define who I am. And I think when I was in my 20s and 30s, having kids and still building my career and trying to establish some street cred as a fitness professional, I think so much of who you are is dependent on what you do. And I think I've gotten to a point now where so much of who I am is who I'm raising. So in terms of where I shift my time and energy in terms of competitiveness, I would say it's within myself to be a really active, conscious parent. I feel like I've always been an active, conscious parent, but I feel like we're raising kids in a time where it's so important that they understand so many things that we learned, I think, in our 20s and 30s, maybe. And yes, there's an element of, they need to be kids and learn things, when they need to learn them. But I want my girls to be strong and confident. I want them to look for happiness in themselves and not necessarily find that happiness in others primarily. So for me, it's my moral compass is kind of just holding myself to a higher standard of parenting. Secondly, I think in my work world, there is all of a sudden this very strong interest in how to be a better person and anti-racism as a result of what happened in the spring specifically. I've been doing this shit my whole life though. I feel like my first master's degree back in 2002, which was like 18 years ago, was in anti-racist education. And my PhD from 2012 was also in anti-racist education. So, it's taken 20 years, I feel, for people to kind of start noticing, but it's never too late. And so for me, in terms of competition, I would reframe that in terms of actually just offering an unfiltered version of what I've been doing for like 20 years now, is educating people on what it means to be a good person. I think there's something magical that happens when you turn 40, that you don't really give a shit what other people think of you anymore, to a degree. And so I'm done apologizing for my intellect. I'm done apologizing for how I come across. I'm done apologizing for how I make people feel. I'm done apologizing for other people's feelings. A lot of that comes from just experience, I think, with a lot of things. And so, this notion of competition, I would reframe it as being true to myself, and teaching and existing in a way that feels a little bit more authentic, kind of unmasked.
Well, I mean, that's a perfect way to answer it, because honestly, like, there's a lot of trainers in the industry, whether they be from the US or from UK or Canada, that they identify themselves so much with what their career has become, or which credentials that they have, or the accomplishments that they've made, or how many likes their post got. And they lose sight of how valuable it is to really dial it in with, like, what is your, like, legacy, as it were, like, whether they have kids or whether they have values that they want to represent, like, what are they doing all of this for? Because if it gets taken away, what do they have left? And even from like a business growth standpoint, like, if you are focused on things that are sustainable, like family, like friends, like what you are truly passionate about, not necessarily what has like the quickest validation. Like if you are focused on things that kind of aren't going anywhere, then you're going to be able to stay the course in troubling times. You're going to be able to find what you need to find in the times when you don't know what you're looking for. Because I know like a lot of people with much more experience than me in training, as soon as they found how to disconnect themselves from their career, they were able to find ways to level up and also to gravitate towards other like-minded people that were able to support them to their goals. Like if somebody had like a 10-year plan, well, that's a long haul. Like that, you're going to need some people that know how to check in on you in tough times and kind of know what your vision is and really understand it and have some buy-in. Very similar, Farha, to how you talked about in the room, how you're able to kind of like sense hurt or pain or like just people go through things. Everybody's fighting some kind of a battle. And when we can see that in each other, in a room, through social media, then we almost enlist ourselves in being supportive or at least open dialogue people, to really narrow it back in and get us back on track. There's been something that I've started doing in the episodes as of late. I think it's been since like episode 120 or so. And I've had my guests put out a challenge for my audience. And it's not just like any challenge. It's something that is deeply meaningful to you, that has maybe helped you personally. And it doesn't have to be like a cliche answer. It can be truly any answer that you want it to be. And it's for the audience that if they take it on, you believe that it would enhance their life or give them some much needed perspective. So I'm going to start with you, Naheed. What would your challenge be that you'd put out to the audience?
So I was recently challenged with a family member that I have a very difficult time with. One that's been challenging for me for a number of years. And in talks with Farha, and so we communicate about everything. The challenge to me was to put away that negativity and all of that old baggage and do things to try to nurture, create a relationship again. And so that's something that I didn't want to face and I didn't want to do. And it took me a good 48 hours to talk through it with Farha. But I did do it, and I reached out, and I said it in a very honest, open, transparent, heartwarming, loving way. And was still met with resistance. So the challenge doesn't always equal what you put into it, and it takes time. And it would be like setting a goal for a period of time. And I don't know when the goal is to build a relationship back up. I don't know when that'll happen, but I would put that challenge out to people listening. Sometimes there's people in your life that go away, and you might want to, if you're able to, rebuild something that doesn't allow you to have it cause conflict internally over a number of years. And it has. And so that was my way of trying to continue to make it better.
So what's your challenge?
Challenge is to try to do what I did. Reach out and build or nurture a situation that may be salvageable.
Yeah, I like that. It's kind of
regardless of
the consequence. Yeah.
Outcome.
Yeah.
Leaning into uncomfortable situations without expectations, kind of thing. Just like being willing to get a little bit uncomfortable for the sake of either clarity or like progress. But that makes sense. I like that. Yeah. Farha, do you have a challenge for the audience?
My challenge would be to really sit back and examine your own privileges and biases. And if you don't think you have privileges or biases, give me a call. We'll have a conversation. And being open to having your opinions about things challenged. I think so many people online speak from opinion as opposed to any kind of informed background, and you don't have to have a PhD in anti-racism to be informed. There's so many people that I know that have done, tons of reading, and understand different sources, and are very knowledgeable on the topic of privilege and bias and race. So my challenge for your listeners would be to really step into yourself and examine your own biases and aspects of privilege, and think about how those privileges and or biases make your life, different from other people, and start there.
Well, I think that's important, especially with the concept that when we find ways to support people around us with what could be a privilege, or just with what we might not have been aware that they needed support with, that we could offer that support, like by helping people around us rise up, that's going to help us as well. It's going to produce a better environment. It's going to enhance our life. Like having conversations with people from all different careers and all different backgrounds and ages and income brackets, like that truly enhances life. And to learn more about people, I think that's one of the most underrated things a person could possibly do, to be able to have conversations and understand deeper. But there I go rambling. As we keep ourselves on our timeline for today, I'm going to basically wrap this up, but thank you so much for joining me again for our second installment of Farha and Naheed on the Lifestyle Chase. So thank you so much for coming on the show again.
Thanks for having us. It's so amazing to see how, number one, how your subscription base has grown, and number two, just listening to your podcast and your interview skills, and the different variety and diversity in your guests, and just seeing you navigate incredible issues that are happening, that are really salient and top of mind for people, and you find the most intriguing and inspiring guests to kind of speak to what's going on in the world. So continue that amazing work. It's really inspiring for so many people.
Thank you.